Hi, I'm Anna Ahmed. This is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we're going to talk about abolitionism.
Miss Ahmed, is abolitionism about the history of bullying?
No, me from the past. Abolitionism is a movement to end slavery. The earliest abolitionist movements began with religious groups such as the Quakers. After the Second Great Awakening, these religions saw slavery as a sin and morally wrong. One particular religion-inspired abolitionist was Theodore Dwight Weld. After hearing Charles Finney evangelize in the 1820s, Weld spoke to the farming community. Arthur and Lewis Tappan paid Weld into the Lane Theological Seminary, where he and other students were expelled for creating a debate about slavery. These Lane rebels spread across the Northwest, telling others about the gospel, including anti-slavery. Theodore Weld also created a pamphlet called American Slavery as It Is, which reached many with its arguments influenced by Uncle Tom's Cabin. One particularly moving quote from Uncle Tom's Cabin is, "I would rather not sell him," said Mr. Shelby thoughtfully. "The fact is, sir, I'm a human man, and I hate to take the boy from his mother, sir." Oh, it's time for the mystery document? The rules here are simple. I either get the author of the mystery document right, or I get shocked. Let's see what we got. No. Tell a man whose house is on fire to give a moderate alarm. Tell him to moderately rescue his wife from the hands of the ravisher. Tell the mother to gradually extricate her babe from the fire into which it has fallen. But urge me not to use moderation in a cause like the present. I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard. Well, it's definitely a male, because a woman at the time couldn't really be heard. It also sounds like a crazy person, so I'm going to say William Lloyd Garrison. Yes? Yes! So I assume Stan used this document so that I could talk about the radical abolitionists. Other abolitionists at the time gathered together and created the American Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. William Lloyd Garrison was seen as self-righteous. He didn't seem to care about slavery, but rather getting away from it. He wanted the North to secede from the South and publicly burned a copy of the Constitution. Talk about passionate. On the other hand, most abolitionists relied on politics to end slavery. They supported the Liberty Party in 1840, the Free Soil Party in 1848, and the Republican Party in the 1850s. In the end, though, most radical abolitionists believed that if war was necessary to end slavery, then so be it. Okay, let's go to the thought bubble. Among many black abolitionists was one major one, Frederick Douglass. He had to escape from his master to gain freedom. He got on a train to travel to the North. Currently, he's on the train, and the most crucial point in his freedom is happening. The conductor had checked his papers in order to see if he was a runaway slave. The conductor was distracted and quickly looked over his papers. Douglass was free to escape to the North and spread the message of how terrible slavery really was. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Along with these influential abolitionists came the appearance of writers helping with their strong and sometimes biased words. By far, the most prominent writer in regards to abolitionism of the time was Harriet Beecher Stowe. She published Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852. From the North, Stowe wrote about the inhumanities of slavery in vivid language, especially highlighting the tear-jerking separation of slave families. The South loudly argued the relevance and credibility, as Stowe had only experienced a sliver of slavery in Kentucky when she saw the escapees of the Underground Railroad, a secret network of safe houses led by Harriet Tubman that helped slaves escape to the free North and even better Canada. Harriet Tubman was a selfless woman who went back time after time to help free hundreds of slaves from the South, the place where she had suffered as a born slave for 29 years until she escaped. Stan, what was I talking about again? Oh, that's right, the other amazing Harriet of the 1800s. Harriet Beecher Stowe. She had developed anti-slavery sentiments because of the evangelical religious crusades of the Second Great Awakening, where she was convinced that the evil and malicious slavery of the South must be eradicated. Uncle Tom's Cabin was translated into multiple languages and even reached Europe, where people sided with Tom rather than slave owners. After reaching London and Paris, the government knew that they could not intervene on the side of the South. Because of their citizens' abolitionist ideals, they got in the way from the book. Fun fact, later on meeting Stowe, Abraham Lincoln had said, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that made this great war." In addition to Uncle Tom's Cabin, Hinton Helper wrote The Impending Crisis of the South in 1857 to try and prove, by using statistics, that non-slaveholding whites were the ones who suffered most from slavery. Jobs are being snatched from the non-slaveholding South's hands, and Helper wasn't too pleased. The book increased the fears of the South's planter elite, who thought that the non-slaveholding majority would leave them. Thus, the book was banned and burned in the South, on the basis that the book was full of lies. On the contrary, Republicans distributed The Impending Crisis of the South as campaign literature. Anti-slavery was not just made known through literature. After a debate in the Virginia legislature was lost fighting for emancipation, the voices of Southern abolitionists were silenced. Because of this debate, slave states made their slave codes stricter and prohibited all emancipation. Nat Turner led a rebellion in 1831 that tightened security in the South. The nullification crisis of 1832 invoked fear in Southern slave owners. Because of these events, pro-slavery Southerners defended slavery as a good in the world. In the Bible, slavery was prevalent, and they argued that it improved the Africans' conditions by removing them from barbarism. They also said that the relationship between a slave and his owner was like a family. Southerners argued that slaves had better conditions than those working in factories in the North. These arguments enlarged the gap between the North and the South. In 1836, the gag resolution was passed after Congress received countless petitions from anti-slavery supporters. It said that these appeals must be settled by debate. Radical abolitionists were disliked for a long time in the North. They believed that the Constitution was sacred and not to be questioned. Once secession was brought up, Northerners were offended. The Northern U.S. had a large amount of economics to deal with in the South. $300 million would be lost if the South and North were split. The factories in the North also relied on cotton from the South for their manufactures. After some time, Kansas was given the choice to decide if it would be free or slave. Seeing as it was the north of the 3630 line, it should have automatically been free under the Missouri Compromise. However, the Compromise of 1850 gave them the right to be a slave state. Over time, popular sovereignty took the place of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. This angered the Southerners because they believed Kansas would be a 100% guaranteed slave state. The decision of the citizens of Kansas was crucial, leading up to the times of the Civil War. In the beginning, many westward pioneers ventured into Kansas. However, a number of northern abolitionists were there. To add to the anti-slavery population, companies sent anti-slavery families to settle in the hot seat of Kansas. The largest company was called the New England Immigrant Aid Company, who armed their Americans with rifles with the help of money fundraised by Henry Ward Beecher. The South was in a pickle. When it came to voting for the legislature, pro-slavery people came in from Missouri called Border Ruffians and helped win the pro-slavery side. They set up base in Shawnee Mission and were a major deciding factor in the fate of Kansas and the preservation of the Union. In response to the Free Soilers setting up their own government in Topeka, both sides were clashing but tried to contain their hatred for the other, well, for the most part. And the worst part of all, the Kansas voters had to decide between two evils, one illegal government in Topeka and the other dishonest one in Shawnee. The breaking point of this tension came in 1856 when pro-slavery Americans burned the Union town of Lawrence. With this tension came the uprising of new and sometimes crazy abolitionists. One in particular is John Brown. After the burning of Lawrence, he took his family to Pottawatomie Creek, where he believed it just to butcher 5 pro-slavery people. This violence shook most abolitionists and was bringing even more hatred from the pro-slavery supporters. Bleeding Kansas was starting to earn its name. John Brown eventually, in 1859, was hung due to his raid of Harper's Ferry, labeled as treason. His death brought mixed reactions from the people of the U.S., where the North believed that Old Brown was a martyr for the cause of slavery, and the South believed that he was rightfully killed and justice had finally took its course. Civil War in Kansas erupted, and then later emerged with the actual Civil War. Referring back to Kansas and how it applied to become a state, they used something called the Lecompton Constitution. The Constitution stated that the people were not allowed to vote for or against the Constitution as a whole, but for or against slavery. Ironically, whatever the outcome would be, there would still be slavery in the territory. So the whole thing was resubmitted and voted on again, where the Free Soilers showed up and helped take it down. Unfortunately, this win for the North resulted in a catastrophic event, the separation of the Democratic Party, the only national party left. Meanwhile, in Massachusetts, Senator Charles Sumner, a leading abolitionist, made himself one of the most disliked in the Senate when he delivered his speech titled "The Crime Against Kansas." In retaliation, Preston S. Brooks approached Sumner and hit him with a cane, beating him with it multiple times until it broke. Sumner was left unconscious while nearby senators did nothing. Massachusetts defiantly re-elected Sumner, leaving his seat empty. The Free Soil North was extremely angry at Bully Brooks. Copies of Sumner's speech were sold by the thousands, and the incident led to many more Republican votes. The beating of Charles Sumner was one of the first events against abolitionists that led up to the beginning of the Civil War. Crash Course is produced and directed by Billy Teeter. Our script supervisor is Edith Benitez. The associate producer is Riley Erickson. The show is written by Rachel Goff and myself. Thanks for watching Crash Course, and as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.